I'm building Sumo, a physics-based fighting game where planets sumo wrestle to be the last one standing in the solar system. This series will cover the process from a simple prototype to a polished game. Since I'm making the game by myself, I decided to make something simple, something that wouldn't take 3.5 years. No need for crazy graphics, as I'm more into programming and design. I originally started development in 2019, using JavaScript Canvas and no game engine. Each player has a planet controlled with the left joystick, and a moon that orbits in the direction of the right joystick. The goal is to move your moon inside another player's planet and grab them with the right trigger as if it were a hand. Then move them outside of the ring where their health would deplete. I managed to get a simple prototype running and got some friends to test it. This showed me that there might actually be something to this simple idea. After the prototype phase, I struggled to figure out the best way to implement things like throw physics. Making my own game engine ended up being needlessly difficult, as I just kept thinking about the best way to do things, rather than actually accomplishing anything. This made me shelve the project for almost a year. September 2020. I just finished my main work for the year, and it was time to get into another game dev project. Maybe I should pick up this Sumo thing again, but this time in Unity, which proved to be much easier, having built-in physics and joints. After a couple of weeks, I was already up to where I was with the web prototype, with added physics. I added a grab cooldown, a stun mechanic which limited your movement after being thrown, a moving camera, particles, and basic sound effects. Movement was a big factor I wanted to get right, as that's what I love about so many other games that I've spent a lot of time in. I made it so that you could grab the fabric of space, allowing you to slingshot yourself to increase your movement speed. I decided to start playtesting early, as a pitfall I had with a previous game I made was not playtesting much at all, leading to a final product that wasn't super fun. I had an event coming up at a school that had an esports showcase section. I thought, hey, I could test my game there. But this was also the day that Minecraft Steve was released in Smash Bros. It took a little persuasion to get one or two of the 12 kids crowding around one Smash Bros setup, but once they started playing, they seemed to like it. One of the kids asked if the balls could bounce into each other. I wondered, how could I do this? Surely it would be difficult. After testing some different bounciness values, I found the prospect of bouncing into your opponents was interesting, but you didn't always want it to happen. I made the left trigger change your planet from a pass-through state into a solid state. I also wanted to use this button to time a bounce off of the ring. When the ring is too small, you can no longer bounce off of it, as a sort of sudden death mode if players are too good at bouncing. Testing gameplay changes by myself proved to be fairly difficult, so I started to implement a simple AI that would follow your movement and grab and throw you in a random direction. Despite its simplicity, the AI served its purpose pretty well, though it was very relentless in its quest for blood. I also made a ball object that could be thrown at your opponents, which would always bounce off of the ring. I added trail effects and more particles for bouncing. I had a gathering coming up where I could playtest the new bounce mechanic. The players at the gathering being Super Smash Bros. Players, they related bouncing off of the ring to teching the stage. The playtest went well, and it was interesting to hear the perspectives of competitive players. I did some research into the solar system and found out about the heliosphere, a shielding effect created by the sun which protects the solar system from deadly radiation. This was a perfect fit for the game. I decided to add radiation particles outside of the ring, as well as stars and comets in the background. I added extra force when a player timed their bounce while inside another player. I also made it so that if a player were to bounce while an opponent's moon was inside their planet, it would be ejected, kind of like a parry mechanic. I made the bounce bar turn white to show bouncing more obviously, as well as the moon turning white on grabbing. I experimented with a toggle gravity mechanic, but it ended up being a bit too similar to grabbing. The last basic player action to add was spin. This could be done by pressing the left or right bumpers for anti-clockwise and clockwise respectively, or simply spinning the left stick in the desired direction. The point was to add curve to the movement, kind of like spinning a bowling ball or a curveball in baseball, except there's no air in space. Players can also spin as a form of directional influence after being thrown, since you can't move much otherwise. While grabbing an opponent, your moon spins rather than your planet, so you can mix up where you send them from a throw. After some more solar system research, I found out that in about 5 to 10 billion years, the sun will shrink to a white dwarf star and will be around the same size as Earth. Once again, a perfect coincidence. I found that having the sun as a projectile ended up getting in the way more often than it was useful. So I made the sun heavy and hard to move, but when it is moved, the ring comes with it. At a playtest, somebody tried increasing the number of players to an obscene amount. The game seemed to handle it fine though. Part of why I was interested in making a fighting game is because I'd actually been organising Smash Bros tournaments for 5 years. After the COVID pandemic was calming down in Australia, it was looking like Friday Night Smash could return. It seemed like the perfect opportunity for regular playtesting, so I got to work on promotion for the game upon the return of FNS. I started making a website that would showcase the mechanics of the game, as well as a devlog. I improved my original logo design from the prototype days, and made a simple scoreboard overlay for live streaming the game. I implemented a system to keep track of the score. Little satellites would orbit each planet, where a filled circle shows a win, and hollow circles show the number of wins needed for a match. Finally, I made a trailer to announce the game. Enjoy. Subscribe to see if people can beat me in my own game in part 2. Oh, and by the way, you can wishlist the game on Steam.